No, so I think it's first week of March. For the last 2-3 months, we've had a lot of news every single day. I think that a lot of us are processing it and trying to filter it appropriately. But looking at the pure economic lens, what are your thoughts on where we might be in the next 45 to 90 days in the Charlottesville market?
You know, one of the things I do by looking at these stats so closely is I look for trends, because we can't tell where we are going, but I think we can get a pretty good idea of which direction we're going.
Yeah.
And we've known for the last 3 or 4 years, we've had straight upward pressure on value, demand far exceeded supply. We had urgency in the market for buyers that was immeasurable in many cases, and we just managed it the best we could. We literally learned how to do business differently in the last 3 or 4 years. But what I feel right now, at least coming into this new year, when I look at the stats and I see the inventory growing ever so slightly, and I see the sales not keeping up even with one of the slowest years on record last year to date, winter storms aside, I anecdotally, in addition to my analysis, feel buyers getting more patient, less inclined to compete, and more deliberate in there, and more willing to wait to see what's next. That may be typical of this time of the year, because if the perfect home doesn't come on the market right now, and you're thinking, you might wait because you know more homes are coming this time of year. And so, look, is that a softening of demand? I don't know. Are we going to list more homes, or is the pin-up demand to sell going to increase this year? It hasn't shown that yet. It hasn't shown that yet. So when you look at these trends and you feel them slowing, or they haven't reversed, each of those trends is going in the right direction for a more balanced market. And then you overlay the uncertainty of what's happening in all the headlines, interest rates headlines, federal government downsizing headlines, political headlines. All of these things are starting to creep into the minds of people and their confidence.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of conversations with people who actually, in the last 30 days, I've had people suspend their home buying search. I've had people start their home buying search. But most of these things come down to, is now the right time to do it, or will it be better in 30 or 60, 90 days? These are hard questions to answer. But for my buyers right now, I'm telling them the next 90 days, hopefully it will feel easier for a buyer to make a decision on a less stressed out timeline.
I appreciate your optimism. I think it's hard. I think that regardless of the external factors, my buyers and my sellers, at the end of the day, if the sellers need or want to sell because pregnancy, divorce, job change, or whatever, they're going to need to sell. I think the challenge can be in this environment is counteracting their perception of this estimate, their estimate, what the neighbor's house sold for, helping sellers understand the data that matters to them and that helps them with their pricing strategy. And for the buyers, understanding of it, yes, it's clearly a financial investment, and it's clearly a massive transaction. And I'd also challenge the expectation that it's going to be a huge financial gain after 10 or 15 years. With most of my buyers, they're coming in because they want to secure agency over their lives as much as possible. They're looking for a home where they can, where they can be. A home where they know where they're going to be, all things being equal, for the next 5 to 10 to 15 years. So I think it's a financial investment, and it's also buying your address, if you will, until you choose to change. And so it's for a lot of clients, it's an economic investment, and others it's just you're buying agency, you're buying shelter. I'm writing about this month that as I've aged and hopefully wizened, I have a 30-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a couple grandkids. And I look at the value of the home that my wife and I have created, and it's, the other day my 30-year-old was over with the kids, and she's standing in the pantry saying, "Why don't you have any good snacks?" And my wife sent me a picture that week with my daughter with her bag with snacks in her bag that she's taking to her home. And I tell that story because I think that for a lot of my clients, that's what they are hoping to get as well, is a place where if you have kids, the kids come back and they feel safe and secure, and you still have that home where the kids can come to. Have we made money on our house? I haven't sold it yet.
Right.
So I think that's what I see the value of home for a lot of my clients, and certainly for us.
Well, I think what you're talking about is when we find ourselves in positions to try to give not just transactional advice or market data advice, but when we're faced with people who care about our point of view as they try to make the biggest decision of their life. And those can go in a lot of directions. I'm happy to engage, because for some people, they're worried they're going to make a mistake in the timing of their purchase. Our home price is going to go down after I buy, or if I don't buy now, will home price or interest rates going to change? And they're caught up in the economics. And we can look at all of that analysis and we can analyze it. And then sometimes I'm sitting with people and we get through all that and I look at them, there's another strategy involved here too, and that's YOLO.
Yeah.
Right? You only live once and you need a place to live, and you can choose to live well beneath your means, or you can reach beyond your means now, expecting your lifestyle, and you can see 10 years ahead to what your life is going to be like in 10 years. It's very difficult to do, but some people gamble and do that. Some people don't, because we know from the time. What's crazy about our market, our real estate market in general now, is the fact that the median age for a first-time home buyer is now 38 years old. Right? This is not normal.
How old were you when you bought your first house?
27.
We bought our first house, I think my wife and I were the same age.
It was $67,000 though.
We were 25, I think, and they loaned us, $75,000.
Well, look, I just got into the real estate industry. I was working for a builder who talked me into buying one of his houses, and I didn't understand mortgage math or anything, and so I looked at how much interest I was going to pay over 30 years, and I thought I was being ripped off. I really did. The first time I looked at that, it's scary numbers. Amortization schedules are scary.
Throw that stuff away. It's fine.
Yeah. So, but anyway, look, if I develop a relationship with someone that gets to the point that we're having those types of conversations, I'm happy to engage in, and I'm flattered that they would trust in me to share my life experiences. Right. Because just like you talked about, I've built 4 times, right? Mm-hmm. Custom built 4 times in my lifetime, and I've never bought a resale to this point, actually.
What's one mistake you've made when you're building a home?
Not spending enough on some of the finishes and features I wanted that I didn't think I needed, that you touch and feel every day, right? The economics of home building can be overwhelming once you've signed that contract and now all these options are laid out for you. And so it's hard to know what's really going to matter the most. It's not to me about, what countertop you're going to put in, and whether in 10 years everything is going to be outdated. Mostly. Yeah. But there's some quality of features and components in homes that affect the way your daily lifestyle lives and your appreciation for your own home. And as one of the things I've learned about helping as many builders sell as many homes as I've helped sell, right? We talk about, I'm like over 1,000 new home transactions in my career. And what that gives me is the book of experience to help you go through that entire process as someone who understands the other side of the process probably better than most realtors in town. And it's just a unique path my career has taken. And that's where I think I add the most value, honestly, particularly in a situation where you really get into that custom home building experience and how you navigate that and watch out for the mistakes. But I also always tell, it's impossible to build a home and have a perfect process, a perfect experience, because it's thousands of man-made and manufactured or natural parts put together by hundreds of people. And it's not going to be a perfect process.
There are mistakes made every single day. In what we do and in the build process, I find that there are always mistakes. It's how you respond to it as the client, how your agent responds to it, hopefully in a non-emotional way, and how the builder owns the mistake. Because anybody who tells you they're infallible is lying to you or selling you something.
That's true. Right. I always say you measure a builder by the way they respond to their mistakes, because they're going to happen and they're going to be outside of their control. But the other thing there, that the building process, depending on the builder you're working with and what level of service and customization they're offering you, it's a relationship with multiple people on that building team. You become a team, and I think one of the areas I really help my clients in that process is understanding how to manage those relationships and what not to do and how to approach problems and things like that as they work through working with a project manager, the administrative side of things, the design center person, and ultimately the leadership of that organization for what they're creating. Before we go to closing thoughts, I'm going to ask you a question that I want to have a little conversation about, okay? You ready? I've noticed in the last week that you've listed a couple of homes into coming soon status.
I have.
So you've been working with sellers to figure out what their homes are worth in the early stages of 2025. How do you approach valuations when you're comparing to comps that could be 6 months to a year old, right? Mm-hmm. We've been in a low inventory environment. If you can find the right comps,
right,
based on how old they are, how are you adjusting those values going into a new year? Assuming the homes are exactly the same.
I mean, I use this estimate is the way I start now. I look at this estimate. I look at the Redfin estimate. I look at the assessments. But I think, too. Just to know, sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're wildly off. With one of them, we've been lucky to see a couple recent comparable homes that have gone pretty quickly. So we have the active and the pending in the recent history to use as a metric. The other one's a little bit more challenging because we had some expired last year in that particular neighborhood. We were competing with new construction, and so it's math. I mean, you are looking at the price per square foot as a metric. You're looking at the days on market. You're looking at the competition, but it's also making sure that we're not pricing it higher than we need to or want to. I've got another one coming that's a smaller house. It's going to be a bit more challenging because we haven't had a good comp in 5 months. So it's a lot of it is really professional instinct as well.
For me, when it comes to pricing homes right now, yes, we have to find comparable properties, but that's an oversimplification of assigning value, because if market conditions are wobbling or starting to show signs of changing, it's hard to know this time of year what to expect for year-over-year appreciation, because sometimes that's a simple calculation that you can just say, you know what, we know homes this year are worth about 3 or 4% more than they were last year. Let's make that adjustment. But for me, I think it's trying to measure demand, right? How many buyers do we think are out there that are going to be interested in this property? Is it in a segment of the market where we don't have enough homes for the buyers that are out there? Or are we getting into one of those segments of the market where there's actually a few choices that you're competing with? Of course, you always have to figure out how you're competing with new construction, because if you're above $500,000 in this market, you're competing with new construction. Mm-hmm. If you're on the peripheral parts of the county now, you're competing with new construction even below that price point, because things are happening in Fluvanna and Green that are creating that inventory at lower new construction price points. But it's an art to price a home, in my opinion, and it takes a lot of experience to kind of understand this, because the seller has a pretty good amount of input in where that home is priced as well.
The seller takes the guidance. I mean, I think that it's what I try to do is help them focus on their particular market band. Their comps, the things that I define a comp in that context as a home that I, as a buyer's agent, would show on that Tuesday afternoon. That's a comp to me. If I'm going to show that buyer these 3 houses, they're comps, but those 4 or 5 different price point or same price point but different location or whatever, they're in the conversation as context, but they're not in the market band that we're using to define. But I think it is an art in a lot of ways. Yes, there's math, there's an algorithm, but there's also a sense of how is this home going to fit on the market in the context, and also doing that final look the day you activate it, because you price it.
You mean from the time you meet a seller to the time you put it on the MLS, you change your mind 6 or 7 times?
Yeah, give or take.
Me too.
Give or take, because if I give the price on Tuesday and with no other homes on the market, and then in 2.5 weeks we're ready to roll, and you've got 4 competition, that's a different conversation.
Look, at the interview stage, trying to earn the business of a seller, I let them know we're not going to set a price till the day we put it on the MLS. I said, when we take the pictures and I show you those after you spend all this time getting your house ready, you're going to think it's worth more when you see those pictures the first time than our analysis showed. But we're going to let the dust settle on that, and we're going to. But yes, this time of year, you can't price a home because you're probably going to find that comparable or some data point between the time you're getting ready to list and the time you list that's going to influence that value.
Yeah. All right, Greg. So it's first week of March. We're doing this again in April. What would you tell consumers? First week of March, they're middle of their process to buy a home or sell a home, where they're starting to engage the professional to help them. What are one or two things you would tell someone to do?
Go ahead, engage in the market immediately, right? If you're shopping, start, even if it's just online. Open houses are a great way to go see houses. You have to start to get a feel for things, but look, we talked about it before. You should interview and get to know agents. Open houses is a way to meet agents as much as it is to see houses, because you can get a feel for someone pretty fast in a 5-minute conversation. But it's March, and so if you've been thinking about these things, there just hasn't been a lot to make you engage with the market. It's about to engage you, right? Activity is going to pick up by 50 to 60% of what we've seen so far this year. Just historically, that's what happens in March. I think you should put the work in to find the right agent for you, because the reason we have these conversations, even off the video camera, and the reasons we do all this analysis is so we can give the best advice we can possibly give for people who are trying to make hard decisions and understand things. Yeah.
So I would say, again, echoing that, if you haven't already started the process of engaging a professional, talk to one or two or three. My advice is go to open houses. It's a great way to learn the inventory, great way to meet other agents. Even though I'm having 2 open houses this coming weekend, don't hire the first agent you meet. They might be great. It might be me or Greg. It might not be. So do that due diligence to interview them and ask the right questions and learn the right questions to ask, because you are hiring somebody to help you through a life stage and to help you make the best decision you possibly can. I'm Jim Duncan with Nest Realty, 434-242-7140, and jim@nestrealty.com.
And I'm Greg Slater, 434-981-6655. Greg Slater at nestrealty.com. Because we give out our phone numbers because we want you to call us. We're happy to talk.
And we usually answer.
Or call back quickly.